Hi everyone, this is Shane with Omni Technologies. Today we're going to be taking a look at how to set up holidays within Lenel OnGuard software. First off, I'd like to ask the question, what is a holiday in the software and why should we care about how to set it up? Well, from my experience, I would say if you don't have any of your card readers on scheduled reader mode changes, for instance, unlocking on a daily basis or in any time at all, then you probably don't care about holidays. The main time that holidays really come into play is when you're unlocking doors on a regular basis, because sooner or later you're going to have a holiday that falls during that schedule. So the issue is, do you still want your door to open up if nobody's in the building? And of course, the answer is usually no. So how do we account for that? Well, that's where holidays come into play. Holidays work directly with time zones within OnGuard. The simplest way I like to explain it is that a holiday creates an exception to a time zone. For instance, if I have a door that's on a time zone that runs Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, and let's say I have a holiday that falls during the week. Well, if I create a holiday for that day, and let's say that holiday falls on Wednesday, when Wednesday comes around, the system is going to look and see that Wednesday is set up as a holiday. So it will override the normal schedule for that day of the week, and it will not run. Now, there are ways to override that, and that's what we're going to discuss now. So let's go ahead and dive in. I've already opened up my system administration application, and you probably could have guessed it, but since holidays work in conjunction with time zones, that's where we're going to find them in the application. So we're going to go to the access control menu, we're going to go to time zones. It actually right away takes us to the holidays tab. Now, we don't have any holidays. I've got a blank slate here to work with. So like most other things in the OnGuard software, we've got some buttons down on the lower left corner. Currently, since there aren't any here, all I can really do is click add. If I had existing holidays, you would also be able to modify and delete them. So we're going to go ahead and create add. A couple of things that are required to create a holiday. One, I have to give it a name. So we're just going to go ahead and call it test holiday. You have to select the dates or date. So you have to consider the duration. Is this a one-day holiday? Is this spanning multiple days? So you can increase the duration if it is applicable to your situation. Also, if it's a holiday that is the same every year, such as Christmas is always the 25th of December, you can check this box to make it repeat yearly. And then when the year ends, it'll automatically update for the following year. If it's not a holiday that falls on the same date, then you definitely do not want to check that box, and you just simply have to manually reconcile your holidays. Most of my customers will, at the beginning of the year, they will go into their holidays and they will just update all the dates all at once, so then they're all set for the year. So just make that part of your routine. So we've got a date. I'm setting mine for 2 weeks from today. We've got a duration. I'm going to say mine's not yearly. The last part of the puzzle here is what type. Now, you might ask the question, what's a type? Why do I have to select a type? Well, people get hung up on this. It can be one of the more confusing things, but really, I would just tell you that this gives you a lot of flexibility in how to manage holidays. There are 8 different types, so I can have holiday type 1 through 8. I would say for most small organizations, we'll usually get by with one type. They'll just do everything as a type 1. But the bigger your organization gets, especially if you have multiple buildings, different groups, you may find that you have different entities that observe holidays differently. Or maybe even within your organization, maybe you have some holidays that do a total shutdown of your buildings, and other holidays You may observe different hours. So it's really just gives you flexibility in how to handle some of these different scenarios. So that's what you need to check. You need to check a type, and you can check multiple. If it applies to what you're doing, you can select multiple types. But once you've given it all those things, you click OK, and boom, it puts it into the list. Now, I did say at the beginning of the video that holidays work in conjunction with time zones. So I can't stress this enough. When you're putting holidays in, when you're creating holidays or modifying them, you really have to go through and you have to look at how does this holiday affect all of your existing time zones. I would also say that most of the time, once you figure out your holiday structure, how you're going to utilize the different types, and you've kind of worked through all the details for the year, most of the time what I see most of my customers doing is just simply going in and changing the dates. Once in a while you might have something pop up, but really it just takes some planning up front. And then if you're creating holidays for the first time, you may find you have to go into different time zones, have to check and uncheck things. But once it's in there, you're really just changing dates. And when you create new time zones, you may have to kind of factor that in too. But the scenarios I see the most with how do the holidays affect time zones, I'd say most common, I see that time zones that are being used for access levels, I find that people are usually checking the holidays. Again, not always, but most of the time, because people are mostly concerned with making sure their doors are secure if nobody's coming into the building that day. Most often, they don't care if employees' cards can get them into the building, even on a holiday. Now, that may not be true across the board. Maybe you've got some access levels that are assigned to contractors, and maybe the contractors shouldn't be coming in. So in those cases, you don't want that the time zone to override the holidays. Now, how do we override the holidays? Let's actually drill down into one of these time zones and take a look at the checkboxes. So if you watch some of my other videos, we've talked about time zone management. So I'm going to kind of assume you've got a baseline knowledge there. But let's go in here and let's look at the different checkboxes. So we've got our days of the week, right? And we know that when a box is checked, it's going to cause that interval to execute on that day of the week. Well, if you look on the second half of these boxes, you've got H1 through H8. Those are our holidays. So this is how we tell an interval within a time zone whether it should run or not. So again, you have to remember that holidays have a higher priority. They take precedent over the day of the week. So if, again, my holiday falls on a Wednesday, and even though this Wednesday box is checked on this interval, if my holiday is not checked, it's going to say, well, yeah, I should run today, but today's a holiday and it's not checked. Therefore, we're not going to run. So that would prevent your door from unlocking. That would prevent this from letting somebody in the door through the reader if this is used in an access level. So you really just have to look at all your H boxes in your time zones and just ask the question, do I want these intervals to run on these holidays? If I want this interval to work on a H1 because I configured that, it was set up as a Friday and 2 weeks from now. So if I want this time zone interval to run anyways, I would have to check this box. So again, think of it like a day of the week. If I want it to run on Monday, I would put a checkbox there. If I want this to ignore the holiday and run business as usual, then I have to check a box and put it here. You can also use this to implement alternate hours. So like, let's say maybe this time zone is being used to control a door, but maybe instead of closing completely, maybe we're working a half day. So what I see often is that people have another interval. So let's say normally this door is open from 8 to 4 p.m. Maybe on a holiday, we're going to only be open for a half a day. We're going to close at noon. So what I can actually do is bypass all the week, the days of the week, and I could actually check this box. So because my first interval isn't checked, this interval will not run on a holiday type 1. But if I check H1, once a holiday type 1 becomes active, it's going to cause this interval to activate. So on that Friday, this would cause my normal interval 1 to not run because it's not checked. And it's going to go down to interval 2. It's going to say, hey, it's a holiday type 1. We're supposed to run this interval. And at 8 o'clock, this time zone is going to activate. And at noon, it's going to deactivate. So that's one way you can kind of make these things work, to kind of implement some alternate hours. So kind of handy. One other thing I want to mention back on the holidays tab is that you can actually give friendly names to these holiday types on this screen only. They don't actually carry over on the time zone screen. You're going to only see H1 through H8. But back here, if it helps you kind of manage your time zones, you can actually right click on the holiday over here and select rename holiday type. And I'm just going to give it a name, test holiday. And there you go. It kind of might make it a little easier once you decide how you're going to use these things. So we've only looked at really a holiday type 1, but you're doing the same thing with the other holiday types. You just have to decide what am I using these different types of holidays for, and then you go through, look at your time zones, and just simply ask, do I want this interval to run on this type of holiday or not? So if none of your unlocked time zones should run on holidays, then none of those H boxes should be checked. If we look at like the always time zone, the reason this is always going to run is because it's 24/7. It runs 24 hours a day, every day of the week, doesn't matter if it's a holiday or not. If the H boxes weren't checked, then it would run 24/7 except for holidays. Anytime the holiday came, it would cause this interval to not run. So that's holidays really in a nutshell, giving you kind of a high-level overview, but that really is all there is to them. I think the hardest part people have is just wrapping their brains around how everything interconnects. And like I said at the beginning, holidays create exceptions in time zones, specifically to the intervals, and this is how. It really comes down to if those boxes are checked or not. So I've already spent enough time, so I'm going to leave you at that. I hope that this has been helpful, and thanks for watching. Have a great day.